She looks so much better in flats. I wish she'd eradicate her entire wardrobe of high heels. Hello, my fruits. I'm just dropping in for a little chin wag with all of you. I hope you're very well. And I'm just looking at the photographs of the Harkles at the recent polo matches that old has-beens been playing. And I got to tell you, she looks so much better in flats. I really wish she would do away with all those high heels, because they just don't do her legs any favours. They really don't. They don't become her, you know. And this look is much better on her, a casual look. I feel the more that she tries, the worse she looks. So this more natural look is better on her. You know, the hair's simpler with the bun. You know the escort in Pretty Woman, that Julia Roberts, Richard Gere, and the escort is at the polo match with Edward, and they're stomping the divots on the lawn. That seems to be her role in these polo tournaments. Do you not get that impression? You know, the ladies at lunch, all the fabulously wealthy contacts at the polo. She fits right in there. And I've got to say, Harry, his legs look better in those boots that they wear at the polo. They beef him up a bit, you know. So, you know, I like to give a little bit of praise where I think it's due. So flats work for her. A natural looking bun works for her. The little shorts that she wore, you know, I don't want you to think that I'm some kind of prude, my dear. She can wear a thong for all I care, dear, and that's fine with me. But royal, no. For any sort of insinuation that they're royalty or monarchy, that doesn't fly. I mean, that wouldn't be acceptable if our darling Catherine was to wear such a creation in public. And not that I care at all what she wears in private, my dears. I mean, I trot around in heels and lingerie for half of the evenings of my life anyway, my dears. So I'm the last one to criticise showing off a bit of flesh. So it's not about that. But do I want someone who still carries the title such as Duchess of Sussex to be trotting around in scanties or batty riders? No, I don't. Drop those titles, then we'll stop complaining, you know, put them completely into abeyance and just be Meghan and Harry. And then that will be one way to silence some of your critics without resorting to rather more devious means that encroach upon the freedom of the press. The other great benefit of wearing flats, as we can see here, is that it makes Harry appear taller. You know, he never got to have the wonderful stature that Prince William has. Never quite measured up in more ways than just height, I hear tell from very reliable sources. So she's doing him a real favour by relieving herself of those little trotters, as I call high heels. I love my trotters. She loves her trotters. But I feel flats are better for her. The whispers are that we're going to be graced by the presence of Miss Ross at the Jubilee celebration that Diana Ross will be headlining, which would be rather wonderful. I think she's going to be playing at Glastonbury this year, so she can drop in. And I did hear a few complaints from Americans, actually, saying, why are American stars going to headline at a British event? And why was Tom Cruise, for example, at a gallop through history? What's America got to do with it? Well, no, you're not part of the Commonwealth, but America is our great ally. You know, we're sisters, really, aren't we? Sister nations, and have been for a long time. And no matter how different our nations are, America wouldn't have been formed without its British pilgrims, founding fathers. You know, it sprang from us. So we're related in many ways. And if our American cousins want to join us in our celebrations, I have no problem with that. Now, however, I did have a problem with Tom Cruise at a gallop through history. Let's talk about a gallop through history, shall we? Because there was much of it that I loved, and there was some things that I didn't. And I want to separate the fact that obviously there was the show itself, and then there was the ITV coverage, which is the way that most of us saw it here in the United Kingdom. over the telly. I would never have wanted to see it in person. One, because the weather was not great. I actually started panicking before it began because I thought the skies looked like they're about to burst, and that would really have spoiled things. And as it was, this is always the thing in England, I'm afraid, and Britain. You're never quite sure what you're going to get with the weather. When it's glorious, as Meghan and Harry got on their wedding day, as you saw, it's just unrivaled. Everything glitters. I'm not a great fan of the sun, as you know, but I'm the first to say how beautiful it is when you do get a true spring or summer's day here. Of course it is. But you get all the different kinds of weathers in between, and it can be squally or gloomy or dusky, and I'm afraid that this gallop in history for me lost something because it wasn't a twinkling, balmy spring evening. So it's not something that I would have wanted to sit through, and also it's too large. I prefer intimate gatherings, too large. So I wouldn't have enjoyed attending. So I watched it on the telly. And we all wondered, didn't we, what Tom Cruise's involvement was. And it should have been obvious from the offset. I mean, he was just there to promote Top Gun, the sequel. He only did a minute's worth of announcing during the actual show. And he was great at it. I mean, he was fine. He did a good job. I have no issue with him, by the way, in this instance. It's the producers at ITV, because they gave him a whole segment. I mean, they asked him. We had our two presenters, Philip and Julie Etchingham, Philip Schofield and Julie Etchingham, and they both did a fine job. And they took some criticism for various trigger warnings that were given throughout the whole thing, which was so unnecessary. It was a ridiculous decision, but that was by ITV. They can't help the script or what they're told they have to drop in to proceedings. And they're both perfectly capable, experienced presenters. But they were quite sycophantic about Tom Cruise. And he made all the right noises when asked about the royalty and the Queen. I mean, he couldn't have given more praise. But that was for the first few minutes, and then for the second half, it was all about Top Gun, the sequel. I mean, it was so vulgar. It was so cheapening of the entire thing. And they rightly got criticised for this. And I understand, it is very competitive now. It's not like days of yore where you were guaranteed high ratings with your terrestrial television channels. They're competing now. Only old people watch television now. Everyone else is tablets, streaming services, every other way. So they are really, really fighting for views and sponsors and advertisers. But, get creative. Find some other way to draw in the eyes. I mean, you've got Her Majesty there anyway. But it was so vulgar. That whole build-up to the actual show I was sitting there thinking, oh dear, this is so embarrassing. What is going to evolve? But the show itself was a great spectacle. It was really, really well put together. I didn't care for some of the actors, but it was fine. It wasn't too cringeworthy or anything. Dame Helen Mirren was wonderful. She was the highlight to me. She really did it justice. The Queen looked lovely, didn't she? She didn't look quite as fresh and invigorated as she did at the horse show, the Royal Windsor horse show, the day or two before, when we saw her smiling as she pulled up in the car. She did look a little weary to me, but so glorious in her platinum outfit, a sort of blue platinum gown. And she had a little blankie, didn't she? Just like I got, a tartan blanket that I got a couple of months ago. She had that over her lap at a few points. And she was having a jolly time. The thing most people enjoy about is her reactions. She got a lot of coverage for that. And it's funny with her, isn't it? When she's animated and she smiles, the whole arena shines. It's wonderful. But if you catch her, when she's not, she looks glum. And she looks glummer than glum could be. It's sort of one or the other. But that's what's so fascinating and pulls you in with the Queen, doesn't it? Catherine Jenkins was a real highlight. She looked like a Disney princess in that gown. And she had a really spine-tingling moment when she sang Rule Britannia. I thought that was really wonderful. The other bit that actually did bring tears to my eyes was when the horses ran at speed with the different flags of the United Kingdom all together flying in the wind. It was a really spectacular, magnificent moment that made me feel very patriotic and also tender towards our union, because the day might come when we're not a union anymore. I hope that doesn't come, because I think we're stronger together. Tom Cruise, I know that he elicits a lot of different feelings in different people. I don't know much about Scientology. I did pass those Scientology quarters when I was in Hollywood the last time. This feeling, this strange, eerie feeling descends upon you. And I kind of wrote the whole thing off many years ago when I saw a documentary about it. And I saw the son of, what's that actress, that Anne woman? Anne Archer, that's it. The actress in Fatal. Well, her son, Tommy Davis, he's a bigwig in this Scientology movement. Until 2011, he was the head of external affairs and the chief spokesperson of the Church of Scientology, and the Celebrity Center's vice president. Well, I can't remember the ins and outs of it, or L. Ron Hubbard, and if you're a worshipper of L. Ron Hubbard or anyone else, you do you. It's absolutely fine, my dear. We're all on our paths, aren't we, to try and find the truth, whatever the truth may be. But I instinctively took a great disliking to this character when I saw him in this documentary. I had an immediate reaction that something was off and kind of shady and rather sinister, or at least not entirely good. But I could be wrong, but that was my feeling. And there's something about Tom Cruise as well that I don't buy. And I've got to say many people, including people that I really trust and hold dear, adore Tom Cruise, have worked with Tom Cruise and have nothing but praise for him. I think he's fabulous, kind and nice person, and I'm sure he is all of those things. But there is something there that I do not buy. There is some veneer, that's what I see. And I got to tell you, he looked extraordinarily good in the pre-interview before going through history. He looked really handsome. He's 59 years old, and we've seen photographs of him looking like Sandy Toksvig with, they said, fillers in his cheeks a while ago, looking a bit chipmunky, and everyone thought, oh dear, what's he done? That's taken a bit of a nosedive. He looked great. I mean, he's never going to be my cup of tea because he's too short, and I'm not that keen on his nose. But I like big noses, by the way, just not his particular one. But, he's got this great smile, these intense eyes, but he kind of knows it and acts up to it with this sort of perma grin that he does, this fabulous, which I can imagine would be very magnetic and intense in the flesh. I could, but nobody sits there and smiles like that naturally. Nobody. I've got more of a fondness for Kirstie Alley and John Travolta. I've got more of a fondness for them, who are members of this Scientology lot. So it's not that they're all bad fruits or anything, whatever floats your boat. But you do hear some strange stories, don't you? The other episodes involving Tom Cruise that turned me off were the time when he did an Oprah and was jumping all over the sofas like an imbecile about how in love he is with his now ex-wife, Katie Holmes, and how head over heels. I mean, that was peculiar, wasn't it? You're telling me that that's natural response? I mean, I'm a romantic. You can't get anyone that's more of a romantic than me, my dears. That's in my DNA. But I would call that lunatic as opposed to romantic. That was some show. And then he was secretly recorded, berating, going ballistic at his crew because I think they weren't wearing masks or adhering to COVID rules. And I appreciate that his sentiments were probably correct in that instance. But the way he spoke to them and his reaction, his overreaction, I think, betrayed something about his psyche which is a little bit off, something which is a little bit off kilter. But he's a human being, and we all have our off days, and none of us are perfect. So I'm not berating him as such for that. I'm just saying that there's something about him that gives me the creeps. But when I'm sitting here in polka dots and flares and a blue butterfly, I can't really complain, can I, my dears? I'm sure I give many of you the EBGBs as well. It was cute to see the Queen touching up her lippy as she does, wasn't it? I have to say, I find displays of macrolage quite vulgar, especially if you're sitting on the tube and you're sort of confronting the person opposite you. And there's been occasions when there's been gals opposite me with virtually a suitcase full of cosmetics, and they do their entire routine in a packed carriage. And I find that very off-putting and vulgar and intimate, to be honest. But If touching up the lippy is good enough for the Queen, okay, I'll acquiesce, that's fine. Or a little touch up of powder to the nose. Anything more than that, I thoroughly reject and rebuke in the name of Jesus, my dear. Don't do it. Keep it at home. To me that's as vulgar as chewing on a sandwich next to somebody in a carriage. Makes me feel really queasy. But the little lippy with the Queen, fine. There's quite a few photographs of her doing that going back in time. I'll try and flash a few images up here, but that's rather sweet. Can't really complain there. Oh, and there's something I meant to grumble about the other day, and I want to get it off my chest because it knocked me off. 2 ceremonial maces were transported to the state opening of Parliament the other day, and it seemed they couldn't find some vehicle long enough to carry them, and they ended up going in some car sticking out the windows. This is the royal regalia. Ceremonial maces sticking out the windows. I couldn't believe it when I saw those images. I thought, what the hell is going on? Surely they could have found a larger vehicle of some sort. Even a hearse or something. Lay them in a coffin. I don't know. Whatever you want to do, my dears. But sticking out a window, it looked like some black cab with a dog sticking its head out the window both sides. These are the instruments of our royal treasures. Carriages have been used for these historically. But because it was scaled down this time, it was a scaled down service, they had to make various alterations. But I ask you, really? Angela Kelly's been in the news again. Old Angie, the Queen's dresser, and bestie as they're calling her. Well, the Queen's becoming more and more reliant on her because all of her friends are dead. So she's got old Angie, and the reports are that Angie's moved into the suite next to the Queen at Windsor Castle. So she's right there on hand, and I want to whisper this word because, for reasons of discretion, but what we're really seeing here is a carer, because it must be hard, and it's going to get increasingly hard to physically make any kind of attempt at dressing herself, cleaning herself, all kinds of things that make the mind boggle. And when you're a queen, I mean, it's undignified for the best of us and for the rest of us, but when you're the Queen and when you're the sovereign, I mean, truly this must actually be a difficult time for the Queen to go through, to become reliant on other people, especially for daily activities and rituals and ablutions. And a few whispers have been coming my way that you're going to see further decoration for Angela Kelly. She's already been honoured with an MVO, which is a member of the Royal Victoria Order, in 2006, and then in 2012 that was upgraded to an LVO, which is a lieutenant of the same order. And also in 2014 she received a Royal Household Long and Faithful Service Medal. And she lived with the Queen before when she was part of HMS Bubble during the lockdown, so it's not new territory to her at all whatsoever. But now it seems the Queen wants her right there by her side, ready at all times and available to help. So it is a lovely relationship between the two of them. And it certainly seems that Angie Kelly can be trusted. From what I'm heard, those honours will get a serious upgrade over the next few years, whether it's before the Queen dies or afterwards. She'll be in for further decoration. But, there's always the ghost of Crawford, isn't there? There's always the ghost of the way that the Queen and Princess Margaret and the Queen Mother in particular were betrayed by Crawford, the governess, who sang. And even after she stopped working for the royal family back in the day, they gave her a grace and favour apartment at Kensington Palace. No, at Nottingham Cottage. And she still went ahead against the Queen Mother's advice. She was more influenced by her new husband of the time to do a bit of a Meghan and merch what she knows. And although she was respectful and full of praise, almost to the point of sycophancy, in the book that she worked on and the articles that she wrote about her experiences as the governess to the Queen for all those years and the nanny, although you could say she was respectful, she was in many ways just far too accurate in the revelations that she put out there. You know, she spoke about the Queen's father's stormy moods and his great temper, things of this nature that you simply didn't do. I mean, you simply didn't spill those kind of beans when you were in a position of such trust and such intimacy and power. And towards the end of her life, she became very depressed. She attempted suicide at one point. I haven't heard whether or not she regretted what she did, but one would have thought that she might have experienced some kind of regret. You might know better than me, but from what I hear, she purchased a house at the road. This is in her very last twilight years. She bought a house next to the road that leads back up to Balmoral, her beloved Balmoral, where she had spent so much time with the Queen and with little Margaret Rose. And so the royal family would drive past her house every day, and they never checked in on her. They never spoke to her again. They never sent a bouquet to her funeral when she died, because she betrayed them. Because she betrayed them unnecessarily. Was it greed? I don't know. What else could it have been? To cash in like that on what she knew. So all I'm saying is, I'm sure that won't be the case with Angela Kelly at all. But, you know, she seems fond of writing books. Let's just hope that nothing comes out after Her Majesty is dead that shouldn't come out. But, you know, I'm certainly not casting any of those aspersions on Miss Kelly. I'm sure we're in no danger of that, but they've trusted before, and it must be very hard for them to put their full trust in anybody at all. It's all been about horses lately, hasn't it, my dear? Horses for courses. And Her Majesty received a gift. A rare horse. A gift from the President of Azerbaijan. This was a Karabakh named Glory. And it does look glorious, doesn't it, this horse? And the Equestrian Federation of Azerbaijan has been in Windsor for the horse show. You know, so many of those horses we saw a gallop through history as well. I'm talking hundreds, were shipped over from all parts of the world. It took weeks in transit. Honestly. And she looked lovely, didn't she, there in that mauve cardigan. She thanked them for their generosity. And she made another surprise appearance. She was opening the Elizabeth line. It was named in her honour, and there she is with her companion Edward. And it seems that Edward has fulfilled the role that Prince Andrew was hoping that he was going to play. You know, I think Prince Andrew, by all accounts, was trying to carve out, or had in mind, a certain path where his role might be to fill in where Prince Philip once stood as a companion for Her Majesty. And that he wanted more of what we saw at the memorial for Prince Philip, for Prince Pipsqueak, old Philly boy. He wanted more of that, didn't he? He wanted to, but that wasn't going to happen after all the furore in the press about Andrew's presence at the memorial. So we got Edward, who's doing a fine job. Sunshine yellow she wore with a glistening brooch, lustrous pearls and white gloves, and a jolly yellow hat with the blue embellishments. She's been using my favourite walking stick lately. I much prefer it. It's that staghorn walking stick she uses. It looks like it's part of nature's bounty, that it's just been formed from nature and from the earth, and clinging onto it like some kind of shepherd's crook of old. And I much prefer that even to Prince Philip's old walking sticks with the sort of ornamental handle that she sometimes uses. I really like that one. She looks like something magical, doesn't she? You know, almost Gandalfian. She could kind of summon magical royal spirits. Big Willie looked even bigger than usual, didn't he, this week, my dears? Big Willie's helmet. Ooh, my. If he wasn't tall and broad enough already, we got the extra treat of this bushy Willie. We saw him at the quadrangle at Windsor Castle, where the Duke presented the 1st Battalion of the Irish Guards with the new regimental colour. You know, we speak about trooping the colour, and lots of people don't know what that means. The colour is the flags. They're trooping the flags. The colours, rather, are the flags of the various regiments. And in this case, they're celebrating the Irish Guards. And the Irish Guards were formed in 1900 by Queen Victoria in recognition of the acts of courage and bravery that were performed by the Irish regiments during the Second Boer War. They're actually known quite affectionately as the Mix, and they guard, amongst other things. They're known for their real grit and loyalty, and they guard the royal palaces. William is colonel of this regiment, you see, that's why he was there to inspect them and look at the parade. And also on St. Patrick's Day, he presents each of them with a little fresh shamrock, which I think is very sweet. These presentations of the new colours mark special events or anniversaries in a regiment's history. And William's doing it on the Queen's behalf now, but usually it would be the Queen who presents these new regimental flags or colours in a formal ceremony. And they look rather splendid, don't they, in those iconic bearskin hats with those little blue feather dusters on the side. I don't know what those bits are called, but they look just like those little retro feather dusters that you can get with the glossy feathers, don't they, that you can attack your cobwebs in the corner of the room with. And he doesn't stop to catch breath, does he, my dears? Always on duty, always providing service for us, because the next minute, well, I think this was a couple of days ago before this actually, he nipped over to the United Arab Emirates. He was over there representing the Queen. This is the first time that he has represented her in order to pay respects on her behalf, because the monarch, Sheikh Khalifa, died last Friday at the age of 73. This is another benefit of monarchy and having a royal family, you see. This is a great benefit because they have relationships that go back decades or centuries with other leading houses and families, monarchies, that keep such diplomatic links and ties between countries and nations, the soft power of which cannot be underestimated. It really can't. And it overarches anything that a politician can do. You know, when you stand as an impartial leader, head of state, with your representatives, it gives you an unrivaled chance to have these familial relationships and bonds that go back generations and transcend party politics and all that stuff and nonsense. This is why it's so crucial that any head of state or monarch has to be seen to be utterly impartial. And my Canadian fruits, I'm sure you've been following Charles and Camilla. Now they've arrived in your beautiful nation. Oh, this did make me laugh. These photographs of the needle-felted sculptures of Charles and the Queen. And Camilla, we saw her enjoying some ice cream and some beer there, and they've been given a nice reception so far. We know it's going to be full of controversy, and Prince Charles has spoken himself of the dark histories that have to, you know, their objective there is to listen to Indigenous communities, to hear the pain that they've been through and experienced. And there's been no apologies. I think it would be unusual if there was an apology for historical events, but we'll see what Charles and Camilla come up with. But it certainly seems that he's making it very clear that nothing's going to be just brushed under the carpet or brushed off. They are there to meet with many Indigenous communities, hear their stories, and it seems they want to find ways to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation. Thanks for joining me, my darlings. I look forward to catching up with you very soon. Also, thanks to those who have sent me a little tip in the tip jar, and if you would like to treat me to a coffee, my tip jar is in the description box below. Stay royal and a little bit fancy, and I'll see you in the next broadcast. Toodle pip.